it's Alex and welcome back to my channel. This video has a wildly different setup than I'm used to, so if there's a lot of camera movement, I'm very sorry. I'm hoping to get a little bit more used to it as I go through this. This video has also been a long time in quote-unquote the making. Today I'm going to be going through all of the art that I made in the only art class I've ever taken since 8th grade. So, you know what? Hi, I own a face. Whenever I'm editing these videos where I have like a really long intro that's just kind of staring down at the paper, I worry that it's a little boring, and my face kind of fixed that. So, didn't plan on doing a quote-unquote face reveal this early on, but hello, I'm Alex. Welcome back to my channel. As I said, we are going to be doing a video on my art class that I took in college. It was my last semester in college this past May in 2019. Beforehand, the last art class I had taken was in 6th grade, and to preface my hatred of art classes, in 6th grade, that was my like formative years of like, I've gotten a whole bunch of those manga how to draw books. I'm going to use them like crazy. So, and that's how I originally got into drawing. My older sister started a class based on one of those how to draw books for both me and her, and we just drew. And during this 6th grade art class, I had a lot of trouble doing realistic portraits, and I went up to my teacher and was like, hey, can I take some liberties? Can I do a little bit of anime with this? Like, the eyes are killing me. Can I just please? And so I don't remember whether or not this is exactly what she said to me, or if this is just kind of like my brain doing some exaggerations, which it kind of tends to do. But I remember her saying that she'd throw my personal sketchbook out if she ever saw it in her class, and to never ask her if I could draw anime again. So I went heavy into band and never took an art class again. Like, all through high school, all through middle school, no. My art was my art. That was, I'm not gonna listen to anybody else for my art. But in college, I realized that I was started to stagnate a little bit. There was a good while there where I just didn't draw, and also because I only drew OCs, and that's another story for later when we possibly go through my older sketchbooks. If I did a video like that, what year would you like me to focus on? I'm gonna put a poll in the top corner, hopefully, if I remember. Pick a year, and the farther you go back, the more likely that I don't have a lot of art. So it's probably only gonna be as far back as 2013, because before that I threw away all of my art. Anyhow, so getting into the actual art, I'm gonna flip you guys back around now, and I hope it's not weird that I'm like staring directly into your souls. Before we get into the art itself, I turned you guys around there a little too quickly. I want to go over the item list. So, I don't know what I was expecting for a beginning drawing class. I was kind of hoping that maybe we'd do like some colored pencil work, maybe I'd be able to bring in my acrylic inks and just be able to do some ink sketches. But I have my girlfriend's shared experiences from some of her art classes, since she's actually going to an art college. When we went in the first day and we started going over the item list, I saw pencils, and that was cool. Yeah, I would be able to get my favorite, shoot, what brand are these? The Staedtler Mars Lumograph pencils that I've been using for literally years. I think I also had some when I started out drawing back in 5th grade, 4th grade, whenever that was. But I was a little worried. For those who might, I don't know whether or not I've mentioned this, but I exclusively stay within the H's range of pencils, just because I like harder pencils. It comes off lighter, and therefore I feel like I don't have to work as much when it comes to erasing it. That might not be true. Gonna have to fool around with that a little bit more, because I've just exclusively stayed away from the B range of pencils, which sucks because the list that we had for that class was anywhere from HB to 8B. So these are the only two pencils I have left from that set. It's the 6B and the 4B. The 8B died a long time ago. I think I lost my 2B, and my HB is actually no, I lent that to someone and never got it back. Then the next thing down on the list, charcoal. Yay! I'm holding it upside down. Yay! I used this set only once. We were allowed to get either bamboo or willow charcoal. I still don't know the difference. I used somebody else's bamboo charcoal once when I forgot these, and they felt the exact same. I cannot work in charcoal. I hate it when things get on my hands. I had a specific set of hand sanitizers to have just for after art class. It was optional, but we were also allowed to get a white charcoal pencil, but I used it twice. It really didn't do much for me. I probably was using it wrong because we weren't actually told how to properly use things. We were just told to go. The one material I kind of used the most out of this entire class were these Prismacolor ebony pencils. They're really fine-grained. I sound like I'm talking about a sandstone. They're friable. I don't know particularly why I reached for these the most. I got a 3-pack. One I threw away because it was about this long. This one remains, and this one I had just started at the very end of the year, so. If I do go back to drawing in this type of style, I've been thinking about it, and I feel like I'm a little cooped up in my style. I feel like it would be nice to do a little bit of practice again in some of these particular styles. It is one of my, I have a series planned where I'm going to be facing my art fears, and blind contours are 100% my fear. You'll see when we get there. But now that we've gotten the supplies out of the way, we can actually get into the artwork. But, so the first assignment came along. The first day we just kind of talked over supplies and just said, hey everyone, get them for next week. And then next week came around, I'm like, I'm so ready to just draw circles and shade them, or boxes. I would really like to learn how to draw boxes. Perspective would be great. Perspective was 95% of the reason why I wanted to take this class. One of my friends took this class with a different professor the semester before, and she said perspective was a bitch, and I'm like, I want to make perspective my bitch though. But yes, I was really hoping to just kind of jump right into that, but she hands out the first assignment. The first assignment was called mark making. In the list of rules, we weren't allowed to make an image. I also apologize. This thing down here is Rosebud's paper. I'm kind of trapped in here by my filming setup, so I would move that if I could. That's Rosebud playing with her other paper, so we will have some audio issues from Rosebud because she's in her afternoon play mood. So, first drawing of this drawing class. I wasn't allowed to make an image. And actually, this is supposed to be viewed in a portrait, so there we go. I kind of did sneak in an image, if you can see it in there, but this class started off with unconventional materials. We were required to take an abnormal drawing utensil and an abnormal drawing medium and mash them together and mark. I kind of wish I had both of the pieces I created for this assignment. My first assignment, I took toilet bowl cleaner and a fake flower and kind of like bashed it against the paper. And I used toilet bowl cleaner because I thought this assignment was garbage and I wanted to clean it up. Well, I mean, it wasn't garbage, it was shitty, but you know, toilet cleaner makes more sense. But I didn't want to have to give that explanation on the first day and make the professor already hate me. So I took Kool-Aid, and then I decided, hey, I have a geode I haven't broken open yet. I took this geode and poured that pre-mixed Kool-Aid stuff, like the little bottles, and I made this. once I did this shape, I figured that it kind of looked enough like a violin that I could just kind of... I hate abstract art. I hate it with a burning passion, and I feel like that's what kind of got me off on the wrong foot with my professor. I don't like abstract art because, yes, quote, there's a quote-unquote interpretation, but if I'm doing art, I want it to have an actual story with it. I'm so story-oriented that I can't do this nonsense. Keep the abstract hatred in mind. All right, moving on to the next assignment. We were supposed to go around the classroom and take a whole bunch of rubbings. So both of these are obviously very different. There's nothing complementary about the two, maybe like this, and that's it. So the next homework was to do a diptych. So one part of the diptych was supposed to be created entirely of rubbings. And let me see if I can get... It's a little awkward to get all of it like that, so we'll have it like that. So this is the diptych entirely made of rubbings. This is bathroom tile, this was a laundry basket, this is a napkin holder, this is a knife, this is a fan. And then for the counterpart, I'm going to flip this over so that way we don't have a whole bunch of charcoal running everywhere. But for the other side of the diptych, it was supposed to be entirely made of your own marks. You weren't allowed to do any rubbing. And I figured that since the knife area was the darkest in that piece, the knife area would be the lightest in this piece. They go together in a sense. The next series of assignments for this class was blind contouring. Now, if you don't know what blind contour means, you're supposed to... So, say I have my pencil, and we were supposed to hold it like this the entire class. If we held it like this, we actually got told off. Nicely told off, but told off nonetheless. So, pencil. Without looking directly at your paper, you had to look directly at your subject and just let your eye follow it. And I see what it's trying to get you to do. I have a real issue with putting out things that I am less than happy with. If I hate it, I'm not gonna want to put it up. I hate every single... It just... Blind contouring makes me very, very uncomfortable. Even though everyone says it's supposed to look like a drunken idiot just kind of fell asleep as they were dragging the pencil along the page, but we also started off with the blind contouring with plants, which I've never been able to draw. Plants are really hard for me to draw. The order of this class seemed very out of order. Then we went to a garden greenhouse that they had on our campus, and we did more blind contouring and some contour drawings. These are just thumbnails. The one thing that this class taught me how to do was how to thumbnail, and that has been, I think, integral to the growth of my work in this past year. Not so much with down at the bottom, but just this particular palm right in here. Like, I would happily color this in digitally. Don't know if I'm ever going to do that, but it's an option. On the back of this sheet is a blind contour I had to do versus the contour drawing. And then we did another week in the greenhouse. Lots more contour drawing. Oh, that's upside down. This tree was particularly hard to draw. Well, actually both of them are. I much preferred the palm room opposed to the... God, was this the desert room? I honestly can't recall, but still not a fan of this one. And then for our next homework assignment, the assignment was to go out and do blind contour drawings. So I went to a place called the Franklin Conservatory. It's here in Columbus, and it has a wide selection of interesting plants. And oh no, she's gonna yump. And so this is my quote-unquote attempt at a blind contour drawing. It obviously is not a blind contour drawing. I fully admit that this is definitely a contour drawing. I think I threw it out, but I had the start of a real blind contour drawing from when I went to the conservatory and just kind of sat down and started doing it. It looked ugly as hell. I was like, everybody else is gonna have amazing blind contour drawings and I'm gonna have this piece of shit. I can't have that. I started over and essentially did a contour drawing. And then everybody put up their pieces on, like, we displayed all of our pieces together on the wall, and everybody else's looked exactly how my initial drawing looked. So don't know if I grasped that entirely, because I still hate blind contour drawing, but also I am holding a cat right now. Say hi, Rosebud. Oh, she did not like that. So this was a quote-unquote blind contour drawing, but actually a contour drawing in the Franklin Conservatory. This is in the Palm Room for anybody who is familiar with it. Then for the next part of that assignment, we were supposed to do an actual contour drawing. And I have my title down here for this one. I'll show you the thumbnail after the title, but this is 3.5 hours standing at my kitchen counter and I can barely tell what it is. Alt title, regret. Since this was right around Valentine's Day, we had a bouquet of chrysanthemums and baby's breath in a vase in my kitchen. Funny enough, I think I like this thumbnail the best, just because while it is messy, I can still read it. But this is the final drawing. You can't see a lot of the background because the background wasn't intended to be in focus, and some of the baby's breath doesn't exactly read correctly. I tried very hard to get these chrysanthemums to work. Some of them did. Whichever ones are in the darker outline were red, as opposed to the lighter outlined ones, which were white. This was the point at which we technically weren't allowed to use value. We were told to use quote-unquote marking, but we shouldn't be using full shaded value. And that bugged the ever-loving crap out of me. Next, I had very little to complain about. We were finally getting into perspective. This was just a 2-point perspective practice piece that we did. And then for the next assignment, we had to come up with our own 2-point perspective layout. A lot of people did just kind of like a whole mess of blocks of equal size. Some people did blocks inside of blocks. I decided it would be interesting to do organized versus disorganized perspective. So just practicing with overlaying and then practicing with kind of like a quote-unquote street view. You know how building tops might look like this, but along the street they're all actually organized? That was my thinking. I think it reads a lot better if the blocks along the top are organized and the chaos is down at the bottom. Don't know why that is. I think the top lines are just a lot thicker and therefore it looks better to have those at the top. We had one day of perspective and then we moved into drawing a whole bunch of blocks. The first day she brought in a whole bunch of white boxes wrapped up. I might have some pictures because this was supposed to be, she set up this landscape, or this, still life. She set up this still life with a whole bunch of white wrapped boxes and then all of these jugs and round shapes. And on one side of mine I had this jug, and then on the other side of mine I had this kind of like pail sort of thing. And she said that this thumbnail, like we had to, during this time of our class, we had to get all of our thumbnails approved. We'd sit there and thumbnail for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'd wave her over and it's like, which of these do you think I should pursue? After a while, it should have been pursue whichever one you want, but even at the end of the class, she was still approving or disapproving of certain thumbnails, and I can understand for some people who need a little bit more help in the drawing aspect, but she picked this one but was like, it's not as much of a challenge if you don't broaden your scope a little bit, so I decided to broaden it to include the entire jug. We had, on my side, there was the jug again, and this sort of open yellow crate with all of these holes in it, and I thought that would be really hard to draw, I want to pick that. There was also this toy dump truck, dump loader, whatever the heck this thing is called. I did a thumbnail of it because I figured she put it on my side for a reason. She's the one who curates these things, and we all sat in the exact same seats around the circle every week. And I was like, okay, I want to do this one. I drew that one just because it's the only other interesting piece that there is on my side. And she's like, no. I want you to draw the whole truck. And I'm like, I don't particularly want to. And she's just like, thumbnail it for me. So I thumbnail it. And then she comes back and she's like, yeah, do that one. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I was just like, fine, okay, yeah, I'm gonna draw a truck now because I have to. I hate this thing so much. So I started off drawing the truck too small. And then I was like, I've gotten so far now, I can't really go back and do anything else. Like, I'd already finished this entire chassis, and then I realized it was too small for me to have the scope of everything else that I had. I don't enjoy drawing architecture. I don't enjoy drawing machinery. It's not quite architecture, but I mean, they're big boxes. The boxes are fine. If I could just crop it and resize it so that way the truck actually filled up the whole space, and then maybe this one little block down at the bottom, that would have been fine. It just annoys me how much white space I had to include because she had this massive box behind it. The next time we came in, the white boxes were finally gone. We'd been drawing white boxes for about 2 weeks, maybe going on 3. I was over the moon. White boxes were finally done. And then I realized, oh no, it's time to get into drapery. Fabric is notoriously hard to draw. It's hard to get right. The thing that kind of saved me was the fact that directly in front of me in my thumbnail, there was this, I think it was a vacuum, like the base of like a shop vac. On the other side, I have like a taller thumbnail, but it's a lot more drapery. And I did still have a really complex part of drapery here, which definitely doesn't look like a vagina. I hate toy trucks. I'm okay with vacuums. The sucky part was this entire part here was entirely reflective. So, and I had windows behind me, so I had really strong reflections of myself and my classmates. This one's actually me. Fabric is hard. It is. It's coming across better on camera just because from close up, you kind of ruin some of the illusion. I honestly really like this one. The hardest part of this piece, interestingly enough, was not the reflection here. It was actually this crate right down here. This is not supposed to be as big as it is in this image. It's supposed to be about like that instead of that. And then this over here was like a weird stone mill fan. Every time I look at it, like I forget for a second that that's what it's supposed to be and not more drapery. I'm like, why did I render that drapery so horribly? That's not drapery, it's a wheel. This one would probably be in my top 5 for this class. Maybe top 7. I can't say top 10 because the next project was, unfortunately, more drapery. And this one had this really pesky piece of driftwood inside of it. So I couldn't really avoid the driftwood. It's here and here. I was thinking, okay, more drapery, that's fine. Then she burst the bubble and told us that this drawing wouldn't be like any of the other drawings we were gonna do. This was going to be an erasure drawing. And an erasure drawing, basically you go through and you cover the entire paper in charcoal, and then you use an eraser to actually give yourself the definition. This is the messiest piece of work I've ever done. I don't particularly enjoy it. This entire section of drapery is actually expanded this way. It's supposed to be, like, this fold is supposed to be here, and then there's supposed to be another fold around here that didn't make it into the picture. This mess here and then here is all driftwood, but because I had to do it with eraser, I couldn't get the different value tones because it's a white cloth and then it's supposed to be like a medium gray driftwood. I couldn't get the shadows behind it dark enough to be able to make the driftwood actually gray, and I couldn't lighten up the paper to its original white color enough to be able to make this as white as it should be. I tried going in with my white charcoal pencil, but it just did not really do anything. I hated this project mostly because of how messy it was. Like, I feel like if I even touch this thing, I'm gonna come away with coal miner hands. The next project, we were supposed to go home and sketch our bed. This was supposed to be another practice in drapery. We were allowed to kind of like curate the scene a little bit. You know how still lifes don't just kind of fall into each other mostly? They're made for a purpose. And I decided that I wanted to include a little bit of my wall and also my pillow. I tend to use my stuffed animal cookie dough as my pillow. Yes, I am 23 and I still have a stuffed animal. He is better than any pillow that I could possibly ask for. But I also have these, well, had these postcards up on my wall. They're now behind me on my studio wall. You actually saw them when you saw my face earlier. I think as far as my drapery practice has gone, this is the best attempt. Especially since we have this fluffier blanket that I also sometimes use as a pillow, and then a sheet back here, and my duvet over here. They're all different textures, and of course the normal bed sheet. The bed sheet itself is probably the least detailed thing in this entire image, just because I think I was doing that last and I got lazy. In reality, there should be either curtains on the windows or you should be looking out into trees, but I didn't want to clutter up the image too much. This next project was a really weird one. We were supposed to go into the engineering library at my university, and they have a collection of designer chairs, because of course they do. And we were each supposed to pick one chair and just kind of get to know that chair. And then what we were supposed to do, from drawing that chair and kind of taking in all of its characteristic features, we were supposed to design a building. This was the first quote-unquote actually creative thing that we were supposed to be doing. Not drawing, not taking from life. We're supposed to take a chair and turn it to a building. I admit that it was fun after a little bit, so the chair that I originally drew was called the Bamboula Chair. It was designed by Mario Bellini in 1972. And what I decided to do with its building counterparts, one thumbnail I have is La Bamboula Teatro, which is Bamboula Theater. La Bamboula Chair, which is supposed to be Bamboula Building, and the play on the M in Mario and the fact that it was being redesigned by a Wallace. It's supposed to have some amount of connection there. And then for the third mock-up, I have, instead of having it be super wide like it is here, this is if it just ends in a point. We took those three mock-ups and we brought them to the class and we're like, hey, what do you like? What do you dislike? Everyone seemed to like the shape of La Bamboula Chair. So I combined La Bamboula Chair with La Bamboula Teatro to create this behemoth. Down here at the bottom is the full image of what this would be. It's kind of like an outdoor concert hall. And for the final project, we were supposed to make it feel like everything in the image kind of went with the architecture. I'll admit my font could be better. That is pretty unimaginative there. This is the full Bamboula Teatro with a couple of inside views. You have the pit space down below, then the actual stage and the catwalks for all of the lighting. I ended up having a lot of fun with this project. I can't speak for my classmates, but this was the one where we finally actually got to start creating things on our own. I'd been waiting for that this entire class, so good project. For this next project, we were assigned a book of individual poems, this book of poems by Neruda. And some of these poems are a little bit wild. I'm gonna see if I can find a particular one. How many questions does a cat have? How many bees are there in a day? How many indeed, Mr. Neruda? How many indeed? So our assignment was to read through this entire book and pick out our top 3 poems, and we'd kind of figure out which poems we'd want to base a piece off of. What will your disintegrated bones do? Search once more for your form? Is a crater an act of vengeance or a punishment of the earth? Do you not also sense danger in the sea's laughter? And we were supposed to take each of those poems and make a thumbnail piece for them. She gave another little tidbit to the class that this was the first project that if we so chose, we were allowed to actually use color. We would have to run it past her and it would have to be included in our actual thumbnail, but we could use color. And I'd been waiting for this like this entire time. So these are all of my thumbnails. I have 3 thumbnails for each. Let's go over the sea's laughter one first. So obviously we have this one up here. There is a surfer girl waiting to have this wave crash upon her, and it's supposed to be this type of mouth. I think if I would do this again, I would put like most of the mouth, quote unquote mouth, would be a darker blue, and then the teeth would actually be these lines, and this kind of looks like a mustache, so probably would have changed that. This piece, it's entirely because these are all H2O atoms. And they're, well, it's supposed to be quote-unquote abstract. She encouraged me to try to embrace some abstractness. So I gave her one. I hate it. I just see evil Mickey Mouse right here. I can't. So this is a whole bunch of H2O atoms being silly because danger, laughter. And then this one is a scuba diver descending into a maw in the bottom of the ocean, and this one really stuck with me. Moving on to the next set of poems. What will your disintegrated bones do? Search once more for your form. And this is kind of like supposed to be a representation of a spirit escaping, and then obviously the skeleton. I might do another piece like this. I really liked drawing the hand bones. I wish I would have also done this one, because this one I think is really powerful. These two are kind of the same idea. I absolutely love drawing plesiosaurs. They're one of my favorite ancient creatures, and this disintegrating spirit of a plesiosaur has found a painted image of itself on the side of a museum advertising Oceans of the Maastrichtian, which the Maastrichtian is a part of the Cretaceous era. I didn't quite feel this one, so I decided to take another stab at it, and it has actually found its way inside to the exhibit, and it is looking at its exhibit counterpart and trying to figure out why it's not interacting with it. And I took all of these to the class and I'm like, okay, I'm stuck. Help me. And they were also stuck, and it was between these two. So I did both. We will present this one first. This was the first time I felt actually comfortable using charcoals. I couldn't get them as dark as I wanted, and I sorely wished that I'd be able to use acrylic ink, but she strongly urged against it. I already had done so much charcoal that it would have been impossible to use ink on top of it, so I think the strongest part of this piece is the bubbles. Those took me the longest amount of time. I actually finished this piece and I was like, I'm done! But I don't really like the bubbles. I have another 40 minutes of class. I'm gonna finish the bubbles. So I think going back and redoing the bubbles definitely helped out this piece a lot. I wish the pencil I would have used for this would have been a little redder. I actually used this colored lead for this piece. This stuff doesn't come out very red, it's very much more of a pink. So everybody read it as pink and it made me a little mad. Then for the counterpart of the other poem, this piece with all of its bones, I want to say it took me about 7 hours to do this piece in total. I kept going back and forth on whether or not I wanted around the spirit to be darkest or lightest, which is why there's a little bit of weird color there. I ended up having it be the darkest, obviously. I wish I would have left like some holes. Like, there's no reason for this entire area to be in darkness when it's supposed to be following around the actual shape of the plesiosaur. And actually, the plesiosaur species in particular that I base these off of is Hydrotherosaurus. So if anybody wants to look them up, they're actually really cool. I think they're the longest necked. That might be Elasmosaurus, but I honestly don't remember at this point. I honestly like the Do You Not Also Sense Danger in the Sea's Laughter piece a little bit more than this one. This one feels a little sterile. So before we go into the next set of pieces, I have a rant that I started but did not complete. And this is back in my my 20th sketchbook tour, if you guys want to go check that out. I mentioned how this piece here I had some frustrations over. So the piece was supposed to be coming up with these I am statements. It's supposed to be a self-portrait piece. So the one sentence that I attached onto most was, I am torn between my passions, geology, art, and literature. Because I, at the time, was a geology student, and I was being heavily urged to pursue a job in it, because, I mean, obviously. I don't particularly enjoy the actual prospect of a job in it. It's just, I don't feel like they properly trained me for anything, and now I'm stuck. But that aside, I was really starting to get into my art, and I'd really wished that I would be able to switch majors, but I was literally graduating that semester, so a little late for that. And I've been working on a series of books since 2014, and more projects keep popping up every day. So I sketched these out while we were in class. I took these up to her and was like, hey, what if I do a triptych where I do a realistic one of me to represent geology because it's a realistic science, one in my cartoony style, and then a portrait of me made out of all words from my book. And I had these two options to do like a full body, well, nearly full body, like a 3/4 body, and then these busts. And she was like, maybe you should take it in an abstract direction instead. It's a self-portrait. You're telling me to make an abstract self-portrait? Abstract and self-portrait do not mix in my mind. For someone else, possibly, because they could think like, yes, I am such an abstract person. I am all over the place. I am whimsical. I am not what I am. I am what I am. So I was just like, yeah, sure, okay, I'll think about that. I have two other thumbnails for I am an anxious person. That one I could see being some abstract bullshit. And I have like, these are all of the hand motions that I do when I am anxious. I just didn't feel it. So when we were thumbnailing in class, because we had time at the end of the year to just work on this project, we were thumbnailing and I was like, okay, I can't do anything but this first idea. I am legitimately torn between my passions. Let me just share some lovely nightmare fuel with you. This is bringing an energy to the world that should have never existed. I decided I wanted to focus very heavily on the notion of being torn apart. And I will warn you, this piece is a little sad because I was honestly very sad about this whole prospect when I was actually working on this piece. But you can see there's a very common theme that I ended up going with, and this is the last piece I made for this art class. So you can see being torn between my passions, art, literature, and geology. This is supposed to be a quote-unquote cross-section. We have all of these sedimentary layers. We have a fault. We have a dike, which that's an actual term in geology. It's an igneous intrusion. You see the metamorphism on either side of it. So there's all the geology. And here in the middle, you see the section of my heart that is falling out because I didn't plan on going into geology. I think that's a little bit melodramatic now. But I am a little sad that I haven't been able to use that geology knowledge. Still looking for jobs in it, just, you know, job market in the sciences, you know that business. But on the art side, I didn't want to really include any other major characters, so I went through all of my art and I pulled out any characters that I've drawn recently and in the past. We've got obviously my piercelings, my little globies, my spirit dog that I keep drawing. Then the closer you get up towards the literature side, there's all of my designs for insignias for my books. And then over here we have, these are supposed to represent 3 books in one of my main series that I'm working on called The Descendants of Sotera. The first book is represented here in the lightest. It's the one that I have the most work done on. This one is called Inicost. Down here is Kaitelos. And then up here is Deludus. I'm still thinking of changing that name. I've changed it about 3 times. I do use a lot of Latin in my work, which is why there's these big branches of Latin. I don't have any for down here yet. Maybe someday. But yeah, there will be probably a video on Inicost in the near future. And I'm glad that I finally got to share this art. I've been holding on to it since May of 2019, and it's January when I'm filming this, and I don't know when I will be putting this up, honestly. So, I hope you guys have enjoyed, well, actually, I'm gonna turn you guys around. I hope you guys have enjoyed going through my college class art with me. I will say it was an experience. I don't regret taking this class whatsoever. Sorry, I'm messing with my hair. I can't seem to stop doing that. I'm gonna have to take more art classes in the future. I can't expect to just be able to just get things on my own, and there's a lot of knowledge that I don't particularly know, and I would love to be able to just know more. This first one I think was a good first step, because a lot of what I was taught was stuff that I just kind of got. It was nice to have practice with. I used to draw from images all the time. I would look something up and just kind of draw exactly how I saw it. Being able to do that in an actual live setting is different, and it was nice to be able to get that practice. If I do go out into the world and try to do more contour drawing, I'm gonna have to get a smaller sketchbook, because carrying around an 18 by 19 sketchbook and a huge drawing board was a pain in the ass. I don't necessarily recommend it, but I mean, if it's what you got, it's what you got. I'm never using charcoals again. I can promise you that. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention about the big piece of my self-portrait, I did all of the shading for that background with mechanical pencils. That piece is the one that took me probably the longest out of any piece I've ever done. That one probably took me about 15 hours, and about 3 of that was just shading and redoing words, and I definitely would have rather doing a full piece like that in acrylic ink. It would have been a lot easier. Alright, I hope you guys have enjoyed going through my college art. I already said that, but nonetheless. If you feel so inclined, hit that subscribe button and check me out on my other social media handles. Thanks, and I'll see y'all in the next one. I have it in my brain that if I use 2H pencils, I'll wanna... Oh. Hello, Rosebud. I feel like doing a little bit of realism would at least take a little bit of strain off of me from time to time. I'm sorry my dishes are here. My cat. Just out of this entire claff. What's a claff? Say I probably used, oh no. Sorry, the cat is prowling and I have to keep an eye out for her. Are you yumping? She's yumped.